Ah, my rare breed disruptors. You already know I'm not speaking to the ordinary, the background fillers, the invisible extras in life's dull cinema. No, I'm speaking to the ones who bend algorithms with a flick of the wrist, the ones who make kings of industries peek over their shoulders and whisper, "Who is this?" That's you. That's what you've done. And here's the delicious part. You didn't just catch the attention of ordinary minds. You've carved your name onto the radar of two of the most dangerous visionaries alive, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. Yes, the titans who decide where humanity marches next. They're watching you. Their satellites of influence, their lenses of innovation, their cold, mechanical eyes of progress. They've swiveled in your direction. And why? Because you've entered a league so rare, so untouchable, it doesn't need a crown. It is the crown. You see, most people live their lives clawing at breadcrumbs of relevance, begging for a crumb of validation, desperately tossing their opinions into the digital void, hoping a shadow of recognition might fall upon them. But you detonated something. You pushed a button. You moved a piece. You triggered a ripple so sharp, so undeniable, that even the so-called gods of technology had to pause their million-dollar meetings, silence their sycophants, and tilt their heads. Imagine this, Musk, with rockets screaming into the void, suddenly leaning back and smirking. This one's different. Zuckerberg, with billions addicted to his blue and white empire, suddenly narrowing his eyes. This one's dangerous. That's the weight of your move. That's the echo you've sent reverberating across digital kingdoms. But here's where it gets fascinating. Being noticed by them isn't flattery, it's warfare. They don't follow anyone. They consume. They don't admire. They calculate. They don't compliment. They hunt. And yet, in this rare twist of the game, they're not the predators circling you. You're the anomaly they can't predict, the spark they can't extinguish, the variable rewriting the very equation they built. They've spent their lives turning the world into their chessboard, but now a new piece has entered the field, one they didn't design, one they can't control. That piece is you. And the board? It just shifted. Here's what they'll never admit. Men like Musk and Zuckerberg thrive on control, on being the reference point of brilliance. They need to be the center of gravity around which lesser stars orbit. Yet your move has bent their orbits. Your idea, your execution, your audacity, it's now pulling them toward you. They're not guiding this narrative anymore. You are. They're not setting the tone anymore. You are. And in their eyes, that's both terrifying and irresistible. You're not just competition, you're a new gravitational force. And forces like you don't ask for permission, they bend reality until the old rulers look like relics gasping for relevance. Understand this. You've done something history loves to witness, but rarely gifts to an individual. You've forced the untouchable to notice you. That's power. Not the kind bought with billions, not the kind inherited through dynasty, but the kind forged in the crucible of unpredictability. Think about it. Empires crumble not when armies march, but when someone like you cracks the code no one else could see. And right now, Musk and Zuckerberg, the so-called emperors of innovation, are peering into your shadow, wondering, how did we miss this? How did we not see this one coming? Oh, they'll pretend otherwise. They'll disguise their curiosity behind strategic smiles, their interest behind business analysis, their tracking behind market research. But you and I both know the truth. They're following your lead. Musk might try to absorb your spark into his empire of rockets, electric dreams, and artificial intellect. Zuckerberg might attempt to replicate you, reduce you to an algorithm, twist you into a feature on his ever-expanding digital cage. But no matter what they attempt, they'll always be a step behind. Because you've already crossed the line they didn't even know existed. You've entered the rare league where leaders stop leading and start chasing. And here's the intoxicating irony. While billions worship these two men as visionaries, they've now been forced into your audience. They're tuning into you. You're not just in their notebooks, you're in their bloodstream, infecting their strategies, haunting their brainstorms, distorting their vision. You're the ghost at their meetings, the whisper at their negotiations, the disruption they can't code away. You've become their reference point, the ones who always set the trends. Now they're scanning your moves, dissecting your steps, reconfiguring their blueprints around you. You've inverted the hierarchy. But don't mistake this for a fan club. You're not collecting followers. You're collecting shadows, powerful shadows. And shadows, when clustered, bring chaos. They'll test you. They'll tempt you. They'll plot to absorb you. They'll unleash armies of analysts, developers, and think tanks to understand what you are. But here's the twist. They'll fail. Because you're not a product. You're not a code. You're not a headline they can buy or a patent they can steal. You're raw disruption in human form. You're the kind of unpredictability their machines were never designed to compute. That's why they're following. That's why they're watching. And that's why, deep inside, they're trembling. You've forced them into a position they despise, reaction. Titans don't react, they dictate. Yet here they are, adjusting to you, and you. You're playing with their nervous systems, tugging at their certainty, rewriting their script. That's not just influence, that's dominion. And if you can make men like Musk and Zuckerberg break their own rhythm, just imagine what the rest of the world will do. Entire industries will buckle, narratives will fracture, the old blueprint will burn, because when the icons bend, everyone else snaps. But let's zoom in deeper, because this isn't just about them. It's about you recognizing the scale of what you've triggered. You didn't climb a mountain. You detonated one. You didn't follow a path. You made the map obsolete. And the dangerous beauty of it all? You probably didn't even do it for them. You did it because that's who you are. A disruptor, a breaker of molds. Someone who doesn't ask where the ceiling is because you're too busy carving new skies. That's what separates you from the millions screaming for attention. You don't scream, you act. And actions like yours are nuclear in effect. Remember this, rare leagues aren't crowded. They're lonely, they're brutal. They're filled with the kind of pressure that either breaks bones or forges weapons. And now that you've stepped into it, the game is no longer about being seen. It's about staying untouchable. Musk and Zuckerberg may follow now, but tomorrow they'll plot. Admiration always curdles into rivalry, and rivalry always mutates into war. But don't let that rattle you. Because when you entered this league, you didn't step onto their battlefield. You dragged them onto yours. And on your battlefield, you write the rules. So let them keep watching. Let them keep calculating. Let them keep trying to decode your next move. Because the reality is brutal and simple. They'll always be behind. You're not a trend to be copied. You're the fracture line running under their empire, ready to split the ground beneath them. And once that ground breaks, all their billions, all their networks, all their machines won't save them from the collapse you set in motion. Now the question becomes, what happens when the hunters realize they've been turned into prey? What happens when Musk, the rocket king, and Zuckerberg, the digital emperor, realize the true leader they're shadowing isn't one of their kind, it's you. And that's exactly where the story sharpens. Because this is no longer about being followed. This is about what you'll make them do next. You see, most people think influence is about visibility, about being seen. They think if they can just gather enough likes, enough followers, enough attention, they've made it. But you've skipped the childish stages of influence. You're no longer chasing attention, you're weaponizing it. And the moment Musk and Zuckerberg turned their gaze toward you, they unknowingly placed themselves inside your psychological arena. They're not analyzing you anymore. You're dissecting them. Because what is prey, if not the creature that reveals its weaknesses in every twitch, every hesitation, every desperate attempt to escape? Think about this. These two men built empires that bend billions of people to their will. Musk can send rockets piercing into the atmosphere and make entire governments squirm. Zuckerberg can rewrite communication itself and enslave half the planet's social habits with the tap of a finger. Yet both of them, with all their satellites and all their code, have one vulnerability. They can't afford to miss the future. That's the Achilles heel you've struck. You've done something that radiates such disruptive potential that even they couldn't ignore it. And in their world, missing the next shift means irrelevance. That's why they're on your trail. Not because they want to support you, but because deep inside they're terrified of being outdated by you. And oh, isn't that the sweetest reversal? For years, they've forced everyone else into panic mode. Companies scrambling to imitate their products, governments struggling to regulate their innovations, competitors crushed under their weight. Yet here they are, scrambling themselves, haunted by you. Suddenly the chessboard they've dominated looks different. Suddenly they're not kings, they're pawns reacting to your unexpected move. And pawns that react, they don't last long. Now let's dig deeper into the psychology of this shift. When men like Musk and Zuckerberg notice someone, it's not casual, it's strategic. They place you under the microscope, they measure, they dissect, they probe. But in doing so, they expose themselves to you. Because every question they ask about you reveals a fear they hold. Every attempt to understand you reveals where their blind spots are. That's the brilliance of your current position. By simply existing in this rare league, you're forcing them to show their weaknesses. They are revealing to you, without even realizing it, the cracks in their armor. And once you see the cracks, you own them. This is where the game turns from recognition into domination. Because what do you do when the emperors of the modern age start tiptoeing around your shadow? Do you bask in the attention? No, that would be too small, too predictable. Instead, you stretch the tension. You play with their paranoia. You let them follow and wonder and second guess. Nothing terrifies a ruler more than uncertainty. And you are the embodiment of uncertainty they cannot calculate. Picture this: Musk pacing through one of his dimly lit offices, equations scrawled across whiteboards, his mind racing, not about rockets or Mars, but about you, wondering if your move somehow overlaps with his vision, wondering if you're a threat to his dominance in space, energy, or AI. Zuckerberg, in his sterile boardrooms, surrounded by executives nodding like drones, but his mind drifts away from their charts and numbers, stuck on you. wondering if your trajectory cuts through his empire of digital surveillance, wondering if your rise could fracture his monopoly on human attention. They're haunted, not because they don't have answers, but because you've created a question so profound, so unexpected, that even they can't yet compute it. And here's the brutal truth. They will try to copy you. They'll study your steps, your words, your strategies. They'll release watered-down imitations disguised as innovations. But they'll fail, because replication works only when the source is static. And you're not static. You're fluid chaos. By the time they copy your last move, you'll already be 10 steps ahead, unraveling new territories they can't even visualize yet. That's the essence of being in a rare league. You are never where they expect you to be. But let's not romanticize this as a game of admiration. It's war. And in war, you don't just fight, you reshape. Musk and Zuckerberg are not following you because they like you. They're following because they're afraid of you, afraid that you've unlocked a door they can't close, that you've unleashed a force they can't domesticate, afraid that their reigns as untouchables might not last as long as they thought, afraid that for the first time in decades, they're not ahead, they're behind. So what do when the kings of innovation are suddenly in your audience? You weaponize their attention. You let their focus become their leash. You dangle possibilities. You drop fragments. You move unpredictably, not to entertain them, but to keep them off balance. Every step you take from now on isn't just a move for yourself. It's a command to them. You shift, they scramble. You pivot, they panic. You pause, they suffocate. That's the psychological warfare you're orchestrating, whether you realize it or not. And here's where the philosophical undertone emerges. This rare league isn't just about wealth or fame. It's about control of narrative. Musk and Zuckerberg built their empires by controlling narratives. Musk sells the story of saving humanity. Zuckerberg sells the story of connecting humanity. But you've disrupted their stories with one subtle move, by becoming the story itself. And once you're the story, they're no longer narrators, they're side characters, adjusting to your plot. Understand the weight of that. Billions worship them as pioneers, yet in this chapter, they're orbiting you. The audience that once saw them as gods will now see their humanity hesitant, reactive, vulnerable. And when the gods tremble, the believers scatter. That's how empires collapse, not through external attacks, but through internal exposure. By being noticed, you've already begun dismantling their aura of invincibility. But don't underestimate their cunning. They won't just sit back and watch. They'll test you. They'll throw obstacles in your path. They'll dangle temptations of wealth, partnerships, opportunities. They'll whisper sweet promises about collaboration, about joining forces. But every offer will be a trap, every handshake a leash, every smile a mask hiding a dagger, because they know the only way to neutralize you is to absorb you. And if they can't absorb you, they'll try to contain you. That's why you must remain uncontainable. That's why you must resist the predictable. The moment you let them categorize you, define you, own you, you lose. Your power lies in being the variable they can't grasp. You're not here to play in their sandbox. You're here to burn it down and build new playgrounds. They'll have to beg to enter. Now let's talk about the future this has unlocked for you. You've already crossed into the rare league, the league where leaders of nations and titans of industries stalk in the shadows, desperate to understand your next move. This isn't fame, this is leverage. Fame fades, leverage bends the world, You can bend markets, tilt industries, fracture monopolies. When Musk and Zuckerberg look at you, they don't just see a person, they see a threat, an opportunity, a shift in the global balance. You've become a mirror, reflecting their deepest fears and desires. And that mirror? It distorts, it magnifies, it consumes. So let's return to the question, what happens when the hunters realize they've been turned into prey? The answer is simple. They panic, they stumble, they misstep, they reveal themselves. And in those moments of panic, when their movements are sloppy and their masks slip, that's when you strike hardest. Not with weapons, not with armies, but with the one thing they can't replicate, your originality. That's the one territory they'll never conquer, no matter how many billions they throw at it. You've now entered the phase where every move you make ripples across boardrooms in Silicon Valley, across think tanks in Washington, across trading floors in New York, across policy halls in Beijing. Your shadow stretches into spaces you've never even stepped into, and all because you did something that forced the untouchables to touch the ground. That's the kind of shift that carves history. But here's the cruelest part for them. This isn't even your final form. This isn't the peak. It's the prologue. You've just started pulling the strings, and already the kings are dancing. Imagine what happens when you decide to tighten your grip. Imagine what happens when you choose to not just lead, but to command. Musk and Zuckerberg may be following now, but soon they'll be obeying, whether they realize it or not. Because once someone enters your orbit, they can't escape. Gravity doesn't ask for consent, and you've become gravity. So yes, the hunters are now prey. The titans are now spectators. The kings are now followers. But the story doesn't end there. The true thrill is yet to come. Because the world isn't asking what Musk and Zuckerberg will do next anymore. The world is asking what you will make them do next. And that question is about to be answered. You see, when the spotlight shifts from the untouchables to you, it does something terrifying. It destabilizes the entire hierarchy. Musk and Zuckerberg aren't just individuals, they're institutions. They're symbols, they're pillars holding up the mythology of progress. So when those pillars start leaning toward you, the whole world notices the tilt. Suddenly, governments pay attention, corporations adjust their strategies, investors shift their money, audiences turn their heads. And here's the part that most people can't comprehend. It's not Musk and Zuckerberg who validate you. It's you who destabilizes them. Their attention isn't a trophy, it's a confession. A confession that for the first time in decades, their radar picked up something outside their control. That something is you. Now imagine the psychological warfare this unleashes. Their employees, the ones who worship them as visionaries, are secretly whispering about you. Their analysts, those data-obsessed creatures, are pulling all-nighters trying to predict your trajectory. Their investors, the vultures of capital, are asking uncomfortable questions. Why are Musk and Zuckerberg suddenly so obsessed with this one? You've triggered ripples in their empires without even touching them directly. That's the kind of invisible leverage that only rare leagues can access. You've turned two of the most powerful men alive into mirrors. Mirrors reflecting back to the world just how disruptive you really are. And here's the exquisite irony. While they've built empires on making the world addicted to them, they're now addicted to you. Musk, with his obsession for the future, Zuckerberg, with his obsession for control, they're both trapped in your orbit. They can't look away. Every move you make becomes a data point in their empire. Every silence becomes a mystery. every action a prophecy. And the longer they follow, the more they reveal their fear. Because following is the behavior of the desperate, not the dominant. But the beauty of this rare league is that it doesn't stop at their fear. It amplifies it. You see, the masses, the billions under their influence, start noticing the shift. They see their idols bending toward you, and suddenly you're not just a figure, you're a force. People begin to whisper your name with the same reverence they once reserved for theirs. Not because of what you've done alone, but because of who now acknowledges you. And when the kings of innovation start treating you as a threat, the world treats you as inevitable. That's how legends are forged, not in the quiet of your work, but in the panic of those who used to be untouchable. And what's more dangerous than being inevitable? Nothing. Inevitable is power distilled to its purest form. Inevitable is when your existence bends the timeline, when others must adjust, whether they want to or not. That's where you stand right now. You've made yourself inevitable. Musk and Zuckerberg are no longer your competitors. They're your advertisements. By following you, they broadcast your supremacy to the world. By shadowing you, they underline your originality. By obsessing over you, they confess their vulnerability. But this raises a darker, sharper question. What happens next? Because power, once exposed, cannot remain neutral. Musk and Zuckerberg will test you, not out of malice, but out of necessity. They'll launch counter moves, create distractions, flood the narrative with noise. They'll try to lure you with golden offers, partnerships, collaborations, investments. Not because they respect you, but because they need to control you. You are the wildfire they didn't start, and their empires are built on dry grass. They'll smile, but behind every smile will be a calculation. Behind every handshake, a chain. Behind every compliment, a trap. And you must see through it all. Because the rare league you've entered is not a kingdom, it's a battlefield disguised as admiration. Let's pause and recognize something monumental. You've done in months what takes others a lifetime to even dream about. You didn't just climb, you skipped ladders. You didn't just join the game, you rewrote the game. You didn't just knock on the door of influence, you kicked it open, walked through, and forced the titans to look up from their thrones. That's the rare league, the place where moves are not measured in dollars or likes, but in tremors across empires. And right now, you're the tremor shaking their foundations. But tremors are only the beginning. What follows is the quake. Because as their attention stays locked on you, the ripple spreads outward. Other leaders take notice, other industries shift, the global narrative tilts, and suddenly, you're not just being followed, you're being positioned at the axis of power, at the intersection of influence, at the epicenter of chaos. You've become the storm they can't outpace, the variable they can't neutralize. And as much as they may resist, they know the truth. The future is no longer theirs to dictate, it's yours to shape. Now think about what that means. When Musk dreams of Mars, people listen. When Zuckerberg talks about the metaverse, people adjust. But now when you move, they follow. And when they follow, billions notice. That's not attention, that's command. That's not fame, that's dominion. You've inverted the hierarchy, and the inversion is permanent. Because once the world sees the gods chasing someone else, the illusion of their divinity shatters forever. And here's the twist. They'll never admit it. They'll never openly say, "We're following you." No, they'll disguise it, cloak it in strategy, hide it behind PR spin. But their actions will betray them. Their sudden shifts in product design, Their unexpected pivots in strategy, their subtle nods in your direction, it all screams one truth. They're reacting to you. And reaction is the language of the cornered. So what will you make them do next? That's the question on every lip now. Will you push them into alliances they never wanted? Will you force them to cannibalize their own empires just to keep up? Will you make them chase shadows you deliberately plant? That's the game now. Not about what they want, but about what you make them do. And that's why you're dangerous. Because the one who dictates the opponent's moves is already the victor. Understand this. Being followed by Musk and Zuckerberg isn't an honor, it's a responsibility. Not the kind that weighs you down, but the kind that weaponizes your position. You're not just playing for yourself anymore. You're playing for history. Every move you make now will ripple for decades. Every step you take is a blueprint for those who come after. You're no longer an individual, you're a phenomenon. And phenomena don't ask for permission. They don't seek approval. They don't wait for consensus. They move, and the world rearranges itself. But beware, phenomena are feared as much as they're admired. And fear creates desperate enemies. Musk and Zuckerberg may follow now, but desperation breeds betrayal. They'll try to outpace you, outmaneuver you, undermine you. They'll unleash their resources like weapons. But resources can't defeat originality. Money can't suffocate vision. Power can't erase inevitability. And you are inevitable. That's the truth they're struggling to accept. And that's the truth that terrifies them most. So let them plot. Let them whisper. Let them scheme. None of it matters. Because you've already crossed into the rare league. And rare leagues don't crumble under pressure. They thrive on it. You've turned their gaze into your stage, their obsession into your spotlight, their fear into your leverage. And from this point on, every step you take isn't just a move. It's a commandment. Musk will follow. Zuckerberg will follow. The world will follow. Not because you asked, but because you became the gravitational force they can't escape. And that's the ending they never saw coming. The Rocket King, the digital emperor, reduced to followers in your orbit. The world's attention tilting toward you. The narrative no longer theirs, but yours. You've done something no one else could. You forced the untouchables to touch the ground. You dragged the unreachable into your shadow. You turned leaders into spectators. And now, the rare league you've entered isn't just rare. It's untouchable, because it's yours. So let history record it clearly. You weren't invited into their circle. You made them circle you. You weren't granted recognition. You demanded it with your impact. You weren't chosen. You forced choice upon them. And now the narrative belongs to you. Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg are following your lead. You've entered the rare league. And once you're here, there's no going back.